Story 2, at precisely 2:47 a.m., my phone's screen was illuminated by a text message from my mother. "Come home right now. You're needed by your sister." Those words burnt into my retinas as I peered at them. A familiar mix of anger and resignation made my hands shake. My name is Adeline, and I've spent 25 years being the responsible one, the trustworthy one, the one who always comes rushing when summoned. It was meant to be different tonight. I was celebrating getting my dream job tonight. Senior marketing director for one of New York's premier agencies. "Don't let her spoil this for you," Natasha murmured, passing another glass of champagne across the table. We were the last ones remaining at the pub, our earlier celebration with coworkers having trickled down to just us two. "You've worked too hard for this." I allowed the bubbles to pop on my mouth as I took a deep gulp. "You're not understanding. Willow is most likely experiencing another crisis. She was unable to choose which opulent apartment to rent with her father's money the last time. Before that, it was because her lover abandoned her for being too high maintenance. Additionally, your mother anticipates that you will drop everything to mend it." Natasha's disapproving tone was evident in her voice. "That's what I do. I have always done it." With my thumb over the call button, I retrieved my mother's contact details. "Don't." Natasha took hold of my phone. "At least wait till dawn." However, I was aware. Mom's voice would get more and more distraught as the calls continued, until I caved. I dialed her number. Mom's voice finally cracked over the speaker. "Where have you been? Your sister may lose her entry-level job as a result of downsizing at her employer. She is inconsolable." I touched my temple with my fingertips. "The middle of the night, Mom. Now, what do you want me to do about it? You must return home and assist her in obtaining employment. She wants assistance finding an apartment while you're at it. You are aware of how overwhelmed she gets with paperwork, and the lease expires next month." "I can't, Mom. I just agreed to a job offer in New York. In 3 weeks, I will begin." When she spoke again, the quiet on the other end was deafening. She spoke in a chilly tone. "You're putting your career above your family. Mom, it's more than just a job. It's my future and my career. I've been working for this chance for years. You're needed here for your sister. Adeline, family comes first. Always." She stopped, and I could virtually feel her pursing her lips in displeasure. In addition, Chicago has a large number of marketing positions. Something local is available. I caught Natasha's look across the table. She was giving a forceful shake of her head. "I'm not going back, Mama. Not this time. Then you give me no other option." Mom's voice grew stern. "You may either consider yourself no longer a member of this family, or you can come home and assist your sister." The words struck me like a punch to the body. "Are you really issuing me a deadline?" "I'm being practical. Through college, you have been supported by your father and myself, assisted you in finding your first flat. And you pay us back like this? By leaving your sister behind when she most needs you." Reminding her that I would work 3 jobs while attending college made me want to shout. While my sister continued to live off their credit cards at the age of 22, Willow received a free ride, and I paid back every dime they had given me. I hung up after muttering, "I'll think about it." Natasha squeezed my hand as she stretched across the table. "You are aware of your obligations, correct?" Slowly, I nodded. "I have a plan in mind." "I'm not going to argue about it, but I'm also not going back." "What are you saying?" Forgetting the champagne, I took out my laptop. "Tomorrow, I'm purchasing a one-way ticket to New York. Don't argue." No big confrontation. I'll leave a letter outlining everything for them. "Goddamn," Natasha muttered. "You're actually succeeding. Observe me." I booked the flight with my fingers flying across the keyboard. Tonight marks the conclusion of 25 years of being the family doormat. My phone buzzed once more as I verified the transaction. Willow texted, "Please come home, Addie. Without you, I'm not sure what I'll do." In my life, for the first time, I didn't react. Rather, I launched a fresh document and started typing. The words came naturally now: "Dear Willow, Dad, and Mom." Feelings that have been repressed for years are now being expressed on paper. They would wake up the next day to see me gone. They would ultimately have to deal with the repercussions of their conduct tomorrow. My new life would start tomorrow. However, I needed to write a letter tonight. When I completed the letter, the sun had not yet risen. My hands were shaking when I sealed the package. 3 paragraphs of harsh honesty, distilled all the hardships of my existence. Go through it. I informed Natasha, who had spent the night with me. If it's too severe, let me know. She opened the book and started reading out loud. By the time you read this, Willow, my parents and I will be traveling to New York. I understand that you didn't want this to happen, but I can't keep burning myself alive to keep other people warm. Mom, you've always said family comes first, but you never meant the complete family. Just Willow. While I was a college student and worked 3 jobs, you labeled me selfish for not having time to help her with her homework. You rejected my first promotion because Willow was experiencing boy problems that seemed to require my urgent care. Mom's demands have been just as harmful as your quiet dad. You never once defended me, although you saw me struggle and give up everything for Willow. You become complicit by passively accepting this situation. I also adore you, Willow. You're 22 years old, though. You need to mature. Everyone else doesn't have to give their life to solve your troubles. It's no longer cute that you can't manage the responsibilities of an adult. It's draining. I have no intention of hurting any of you. I'm selecting myself for the first time in my life, which is why I'm doing this. I've agreed to take the job in New York. I've signed an apartment contract. I'm beginning over. Do not attempt to shame me into returning. Don't use threats of cutting me off to attempt to control me. Since I was 18, I have been self-sufficient. Nothing will change, except that I'll finally be free to live my own life. You and I must be on equal footing if you wish to continue our connection. I will no longer be expected to sacrifice all for Willow. No more journeys of guilt. No more ultimatums. I'm hoping you'll comprehend one day. Adeline, love. Natasha's eyes widened as she looked up from the letter. Goddamn, Adeline, this is fantastic. I zipped up my suitcase, already packed with the necessities. Later, the rest would be dispatched. It's not too much, do you? It's precisely enough. She assisted me in getting my stuff to her vehicle. Do you really think I shouldn't take you to the airport? No. I'm going to take an Uber. Staying up with me all night has been more than enough for you. In the pre-dawn darkness, the trip to my parents' house felt unreal. Across the street, Natasha pulled up, not using the headlights. I took the letter and snuck out. Willow spent hours on her phone while the garden mom diligently maintained the porch swing, which made our family home appear almost mockingly calm. Dad's spotlessly clean automobile in the parking lot. It was all just as it had always been. In order for Mom to find the letter during her morning coffee routine, I put it on the kitchen counter. I kept my hand on the envelope for a second. Then I made myself look away. My phone began to vibrate. Willow texted again. Why don't you respond, Addie? Mom is quite unhappy. I turned my phone off. When I got back to Natasha's car, the Uber was already there. You're doing the right thing, she whispered as she gave me a hard hug. When you get to the airport, give me a call. Everything happened so quickly. At the gate, security coffee is waiting. Reality didn't really hit me until I was securely fastened to my seat. Do you want to have a drink? I was brought back to reality by the voice of the flight attendant. Please, water. As the plane lifted off, my speech sounded weird to me. I saw my mother discovering the latter. After feeling upset and furious, she would contact Willow right away to console herself. Even if he might have felt a little guilty, Dad would read it quietly and wait to see how Mom responded. Willow as well. When she realized her safety net was gone, I imagined her face crumpling. While a part of me longed for her, a larger part of me was incredibly relieved. 25 years of serving as everyone's emotional support system vanished along with the city behind the clouds. I kept my phone off in my bag, gathering angry texts and missed calls. I wasn't prepared for it. Visiting New York for the first time, the old woman beside me politely inquired. No, I said, forcing a tiny smile. However, this is my first time staying there. I felt something I hadn't felt in years as the sun finally rose above the horizon, illuminating the clouds with vivid pinks and oranges. I hope whatever comes next. No matter what storm I just let loose, I was finally in control of my own ship, at least. They wrote the letter. The die was rolled. There was no going back now. I was struck by New York like a wall of color and sound. I've been in my new life 3 weeks, and I was still in shock that I had really done it. Although my Brooklyn studio apartment was much smaller than my room back home, I owned every square inch of it, made with my own funds, furnished to my own preferences, and fortunately devoid of family strife. Adeline, Miguel. I had my new boss peek into my office. Have a moment? I minimized my email fast. Mom left 37 unread messages. Dad left 12 and Willow left 63. Of course, I was still in awe of the Manhattan vista from Miguel's office. He motioned me to take a seat. The presentation for the Johnson campaign was excellent. The client admired your novel viewpoint. Thank you. But he held up a hand. You seem distracted. Everything okay? I paused. Miguel had been nothing but supportive since I'd started, but I kept my personal life private at work, just adapting to the city and dodging calls from Chicago. He grinned knowingly. All week long, your phone has been ringing during meetings. Is it that evident just to someone who did the same thing 20 years ago? He leaned back in his chair. Left Puerto Rico against my family's wishes. It was 2 years before they spoke to me again. How did you respond to it? By recalling my reasons for leaving. On that subject, he moved a file across his desk. Next week, we will make a pitch to Nike. Do you want to take the lead? My heart leaped. Are you serious? That's big. You deserve it. He pointed to my phone, which was beeping once more. Deal with whatever that is. Clear your brain. Back in my office, I finally turned on my phone. Sound. Willow's voicemail came on instantly. Please, Addie. She spoke with tears in her eyes. I was laid off. I missed too many deadlines, they complained. Mom's making me move back home, but I can't. This is not how I can go backward. I need your assistance. Please call me back. My fingers was trembling as I hit the erase button. A second voicemail began. Adeline Gibson. Mom's tone was abrasive. Your sister is coming apart and you're playing professional lady in New York. How dare you forsake your family like this? That letter was self-centered and cruel. Call me back ASAP. Remove. My phone rang. Natasha's face flashed up on screen. Finally a call. I desired to take. Your sister arrived at my residence just now. She didn't introduce herself. What? Why? I'm trying to find you. Of course. She's a complete disaster. Adeline. There is mascara everywhere. Going out in PJ pants. This time she was actually fired. I slumped in my seat. No longer my concern. I knew, but Natasha hesitated. She reported experiencing panic attacks. Perhaps we were too severe. We? That letter was written by me alone. You understand what I mean. You've seen me sacrifice my life for them for years, so I gave you encouragement. I was on the verge of yelling. Did she explain her termination? The deadlines that were missed? The never-ending drama? No. However, allow me to explain what transpired. She was on Instagram more often than she was working. Every time she had a bad date, she called in sick. Just as she expected me to fix everything else in her life, she expected everyone else to cover for her. I jumped when I heard a knock on my door. Miguel was standing there looking worried. I spoke more softly. Natasha, I have to leave. Don't allow her to coerce you into giving her my address, though. How about your father? She asked hastily. He has also been inquiring about you. Dad defended me for 25 years, nor am I responsible for his guilt. After hanging up, I faced Miguel. I apologize for it. He took a seat on the other side of me. When I left home, I thought I was just running away. Years passed before I realized that I was genuinely racing in the direction of something greater. Has your family ever comprehended? Finally, but only after I gave up attempting to explain things to them. He tapped the Nike file. Sometimes the best retribution is success. Once more, my phone buzzed. A text from Willow found out you're working at Marshall & Brooks. I showed Miguel the message, and I suppose that family is nothing in comparison to a corner office. She's attempting to find me. Do you want my opinion? Pay attention to the Nike pitch. Pour everything into it. The best boundary is success. It lets them know you're doing well without them. I elongated my back. You're correct. Can you show me the brief once more? As I engaged myself in work, my phone kept vibrating with messages from home. However, something more powerful took precedence over the guilt for the first time. Determination. Give them a panic. Allow them to experience dealing with their own issues. I needed to make a great presentation. I hardly had time to enjoy the success of the Nike pitch when Natasha's frantic phone arrived. Your mom came to work today, she added, her voice tense with nervousness. Adeline, she's growing desperate. I was surrounded by the nighttime bustle of the city as I made my way home from the metro. What was it she desired? What are your thoughts? She's attempting to use guilt to get me to provide your address. It's hardly the worst part, though. Natasha hesitated. Willow is definitely spiraling. Last week, she totaled her vehicle. I stopped walking. What? Was she injured? No. Just her pride in Dad's credit card. She was texting while driving. Here's the problem, though. Your parents declined to purchase a new one for her. Really? As I processed this, I leaned against a structure. Willow was truly turned down by her parents. They can't afford it, apparently. Your dad's company is struggling. My phone beeped as Willow moved back home. There's another call coming in. I have to leave, Mom. Natasha. Thank you for informing me. I took my mother's call. I am bracing myself. Hi there? At last, her voice had changed. More strained, less dominating. We must discuss what you have done to this family, Adeline. What have I done? I gave an astonished laugh. Mom, I made a professional decision. Ultimatums weren't given by me. Your sister is disintegrating. She had to return home. In addition to suffering anxiety episodes, she is unable to obtain employment. Did you wish for that? I gripped my phone more tightly. I wanted to be independent and not Willow's constant fallback option. I am your daughter, and she is your sister. Strangers who were passing by turned their attention as my words reverberated off the buildings. But you never gave a damn about my nervousness, did you? When I was working 3 jobs in college, when I had to cancel my own plans continuously to save Willow, there was a long pause. Mom's voice became softer as she spoke again. You must return home for us. Only for a short time. Assist her in standing up again. No, please, Adeline. Your father's company is having trouble. We are no longer able to help her as we once did. You want me to take over now that you are unable to enable her? I resumed my stroll. Quicker now. Mom, that's not going to happen. You're being self-centered. Well, I'm succeeding. I recently secured the largest account of my professional life. I live my own life and have my own place. This is the first time I'm prioritizing myself. It's also effective. Another silence then. Your dad would like to talk to you. Dad's voice, tentative as usual, came through. Princess. You are missed, I stumbled. Since I was little, my father had not referred to me as a princess. I realize we made a mistake, Dad. I realize I ought to have said and done more. Then why didn't you? It was easier not to rock the boat, but witnessing what it's done to you, to all of us. He sighed heavily. Willow needs to become self-sufficient. She doesn't know how, but we can see that now. I'm not in charge of it. No, we own it. You were both let down by us in separate ways. His voice cracked. Just don't cut us off completely. Please. I reached my apartment complex, fumbling with my keys. Dad, I need time. Space to develop my own life without feeling bad about it. I get it. But Adeline, indeed. I'm proud of you for being strong enough to leave, for succeeding. Years ago, I ought to have mentioned that. Tears pricked at my eyes. Regards, Dad. After hanging up, I sat on my building stoop, letting the city noise wash over me. My phone rang with a text from Willow. Everyone is upset with me, and you are solely to blame. I despise you. A few minutes later, I apologize. I don't hate you. I really don't know how to do this without you. I started typing. Removed. It. Started again. At last. It will come to you. You underestimate your strength. Then I turned off my phone and headed upstairs to my flat. On my desk, the Nike contract stood waiting for my signature. As lead director, I had my first significant customer. Next to it was a framed snapshot. Natasha had taken the night before I went, my face sparkling with resolve and champagne. That girl in the photo had been terrified, but did it anyway? I should have been concentrating on her instead of the never-ending drama at home. My laptop pinged with an email from Miguel. Nike adores your concepts. Dinner tomorrow to celebrate. Yes, I answered with a smile. Let Willow sort out her own life for once. Allow Mom and Dad to bear the repercussions of their decisions. I needed to organize a party. At 11 p.m., someone knocked on the door of my flat. On a Tuesday. I wasn't expecting anyone, and my heart nearly stopped when I looked through the peephole. Willow was standing there, holding a high-end suitcase that most likely cost more than my rent. Mascara ran down her face. You're in there, I know that. She called out, your lights on. I inhaled deeply before opening the door. You found my address, but how? Before I found a Brooklyn real estate agent who remembered you, I phoned all of them. She pushed inside the flat, past me. Nice location. Not that big, though. Willow, what are you doing here? With a thump, she dropped her suitcase. Parents are being uncooperative. My credit cards were frozen. I'm being forced to apply for jobs. Dad even recommended that I work as a barista. I work as a barista. I folded my arms. The horror. Avoid being sarcastic. This is serious. She fell down on my sofa. I thought maybe I could stay with you for a while, just till I sort things out. Not at all. Hurry up, Addie. We're sisters. Indeed, we are. That's precisely why you can't remain here. I stay standing, maintaining distance. Willow, you always act like this. You cause mayhem. Then expect everyone else to fix it. It's unfair. No. How about when I graduate from college? You had a crisis because your boyfriend didn't like your dress. And Mom had me skip the ceremony to take you shopping. Back then, I was young. You were 19. I worked my ass off for that degree, and I didn't even get to walk across the stage because you needed attention. Willow's bottom lip quivered. Why are you so cruel? I'm not being cruel. I'm telling the truth. I sat in the chair opposite her. Do you know what I was doing when Mom called that night, demanding I come home to help you? She gave a head shake. I was celebrating winning this position, the largest chance of my career, and she wanted me to give it up because you might have to face penalties for once in your life. She wasn't asked to do that by me. No, you never ask Willow directly. Until someone fixes everything for you, you just cry and freak out. Abruptly, she got up and paced my tiny living room. What should I do then? Live with Mom and Dad forever? Be a barista. You're supposed to grow up, get a job, any job. Develop financial management skills. Give up expecting others to fix your issues. Easy for you to say, you have consistently been the ideal person, the accountable one. Since I had to speak for myself, Rose, do you think I wanted to work 3 jobs in college to miss out on parties and dating because I was too busy being your backup plan? Willow's face crumpled as she stopped pacing. I was unaware. You never had to consider anyone but yourself. So no, you didn't. Miguel texted me about tomorrow's meeting, and my phone buzzed. The real world, my new life, calling. You need to leave. I spoke aggressively. Go home, Willow. For once, confront your issues head on, she whispered. Mom was right, you've evolved. Are you chilly now? No, I'm simply done being everyone's safety net. I walked to the door and opened it. You can stay in a hotel tonight if you want, but you're not staying here. She reached for her bag, tears streaming freely now. I thought you loved me. I do love you. I'm no longer enabling you because of this. At the door, she turned back. What if I'm not able to? What if I don't succeed? You'll then take what you've learned and try again. Adults do just that. After she left, I sat on my couch shaking. Mom had already left 3 missed calls on my phone. Willow had obviously called her. I texted Natasha. Willow just showed up in my flat. She replied immediately. Goddamn, are you all right? Yes. Send her away. Do you feel like a monster? You're not a monster. You're teaching her the lesson your parents never did. I surveyed my apartment. Small, but mine paid for with my own money. My workstation is decorated to my personal style. Next to the Nike deal was a pile of other projects. My new life built on my own terms. My phone rang again. Mom. This time I turned it off totally. Tomorrow I had a meeting to prepare for tomorrow. I would continue creating my profession, my freedom, my future, and Willow for the first time in her life. She would have to make her own future too. Maybe that was the greatest gift I could give her, even if she couldn't see it yet. 2 months after Willow's surprise visit, Natasha's weekly update call brought surprising news. Your sister got a job, she said, the astonishment clear in her voice. I almost spilled my coffee. What sort of work? A dentistry office receptionist. Get this too. She's been there for 3 weeks already. I took a seat at the counter in my kitchen. You're joking, not at all. Your sister is really there on time every day, despite your mom's constant complaints that it's beneath Willow. Whoa. I struggled to process this information. How are you aware of all of this? I ran into her at Starbucks. She was on her lunch break wearing scrubs and all. She appeared different, more grounded. Another call beeped on my phone. Miguel, I have to go. Natasha, work call. Adeline. Miguel's voice was serious. Are you able to visit the office right now? I sat in his office 20 minutes later, looking at him in shock. Paris. The Nike ad was a huge success. They want their European launch to be handled by us, leading the team for 3 months in Paris. He bent over. This is a fantastic opportunity. When? Next week. I am aware that it is abrupt, but my dad texted me, kindly make an emergency call. I choose to disregard it. I will. Are you certain? It's a significant shift, even for a short time. Dad texted me again. It's about my health. I need to talk. My hand froze over the phone. Miguel took note. Is everything all right? I'm not sure. Can I have 1 hour outside Miguel's office? I gave Dad a call. Princess. His voice was weak. I suffered a heart attack yesterday. The world tipped sideways. What? Why hadn't I received a call earlier? Your mom want to. However, I requested that she hold off until I could speak with you directly. He took a breath. It was a gentle one. I'm all right. There's more, though. What are you saying? The company. For months, I've been having difficulties. The tension? Well, the physicians advise I need to step back. Actually, Willow has been fantastic, Dad. He laughed feebly. She has been assisting with the documentation, mastering the fundamentals of business. While I heal, she wants to try running things. I took a seat firmly in a nearby chair. Willow is in charge of the company. She has evolved. Adeline, this wake-up call, losing you. It forced her to grow up. One more pause. Willow is really stepping up, but your mother is having a hard time accepting it. My throat constricted. Is it necessary for me to return home? No, Princess. That's why I waited to call. I didn't want you dropping everything and hurrying back. We're managing. He gave a little cough. Willow insisted on taking care of things on her own, said that it was time for her to accept accountability. Unexpectedly, I brushed away tears. What have you done to my family, and who are you? After he laughed, he became serious. Adeline, we let you down for so long, letting you handle everything, making you responsible for everyone else's happiness. Now I see that. Dad, no! Let me be done. Are you heading out? We all had to adjust as a result. Your mother is still adapting, but she's trying. And Willow, he sounded proud. She's becoming into the person she could have been if we hadn't lavished her with attention. Miguel tapped his watch and emerged at the doorway. Dad, I have to go. I'll give you a call tonight, but I'm now working on something, okay? Naturally. Go succeed. Here, we're all right. With my head whirling, I returned to Miguel's office. Everything all right? He inquired. My father suffered a heart attack. Jesus. Take a look. Ignore Paris. Family comes first. No. I straightened up. My sister's managing it. And I genuinely think she can, for the first time in my life. Are you certain? I imagined Willow dressed in scrubs, going to work each day. Willow learning the family business. Is Willow finally maturing? Indeed. I'm positive. I accepted the contract for Paris. Where should I sign? I gave Natasha a call that evening to update her on Paris. She let out an excited squeal before becoming serious. I got a call from your mom today regarding your dad. I am aware that you had a heart attack. No. She wants me to inform you apologies. Use those words, actually. I sat quietly and let that to sink in. She mentioned that she had been working on her control issues with a therapist. Natasha hesitated. Adeline is changeable. Yes, I murmured quietly as I glanced at my Paris-bound bag. I'm beginning to think so. Willow texted me, and my phone chimed. Heard about Paris. Well done. I mean, for the first time since I'd left, I felt something shift. Not really forgiveness, but the potential. Perhaps each of us had to forge our own paths in order to mature. Paris fulfilled all of my fantasies, and more. But Dad's second heart attack brought me home after just 6 weeks, standing outside his hospital room. I scarcely recognized my sister in her professional dress, typing feverishly on her laptop. The insurance company's being tough, Willow said without looking up. But I've got it handled. When was the last time you slept? She finally met my eyes. Under her makeup, dark circles were visible. Perhaps on Tuesday. I'm trying to run the business, handle insurance, and work with Dad's physicians. Mom isn't. She's not dealing well. Where is she, cafeteria? She stress bakes now. The nurses are getting tired of her muffins. I sat near her. How awful is it? He requires bypass surgery according to the physicians. Triple bypass. Her voice cracked slightly. Our insurance has a huge deductible, and the business is having trouble. I've been going through the books trying to figure something out. I can help with the medical fees I promised. No. Willow's response was immediate. You've got your life in Paris. I've got this, Willow. I mean it, Hattie. I'm not that helpless girl anymore. She showed me her laptop screen. Look, I've already adjusted some of Dad's company loans, found ways to cut costs without laying anyone off. I just need to figure out the insurance situation. Mom appeared with a basket of muffins, stopping short when she saw me. Adeline, you're here. Of course I'm here. She sat down the muffins and hugged me awkwardly. I didn't think. With your important Paris job, it's Dad, I said plainly. Tears filled her eyes. I'm sorry for everything. I know it's too late, but… Mom, Willow interrupted. The doctor's here. The surgeon explained the procedure, risks, and recovery time. Mom started crying again. Willow took notes on her laptop. I watched them both, feeling like I'd stepped into an alternate universe. The surgery is scheduled for tomorrow morning, the doctor concluded. Any questions? The insurance, Willow began, is approved, a familiar voice said behind us. We turned to see Miguel standing there, looking out of place in his designer suit. What are you doing here? I asked. Handling the insurance situation. He handed Willow some papers. The company's international health coverage extends to immediate family of employees on overseas assignments. I had them backdated to when you accepted the Paris position. Willow scanned the documents, her hand shake. This covers everything. The surgery, the recovery, all of it. Miguel. I started, but he held up his hand. The Paris team can handle things for a few more weeks. Take care of your family. After he left, Mom turned to me. He seems nice. He's my boss, Mom. A boss who flew from Paris to help with your father's insurance. She raised an eyebrow. People don't do that for just employees. Can we focus? Willow was back to her laptop. We need to prepare for Dad's recovery. He'll need care at home. Physical therapy. I'll handle that, Mom said quietly. I've been talking to someone, a therapist, learning to be more present, less controlling. Mom's actually cooking now. Willow added real food, not just stress baking. And you? I asked Willow, how are you really doing with all this? She closed her laptop, terrified, overwhelmed, but also capable. For the first time in my life, I know I can handle things, even if they're hard. Even if I'm scared, your sister's become quite the businesswoman, Mom said proudly. She reminds me of you sometimes. No, Willow shook a head. I'm not trying to be Adeline anymore. I'm trying to be me, just a better version. Dad was awake when we entered his room. My girls. He smiled weakly. All three of you together. The surgery's approved, Willow told him. Everything's arranged. Never doubted you for a minute, sweetheart. He turned to me. Paris treating you well? It can wait, I said. Family comes first. Mom flinched at her own words being turned around, but Dad just smiled. No, princess. Family comes first. Doesn't mean sacrificing yourself. It means supporting each other while everyone grows. He squeezed my hand. Go back to Paris after the surgery. We've got this covered. Looking at Willow's quiet confidence, Mom's softened edges and Dad's proud smile, I realized he was right. This wasn't the family I'd fled from months ago. We'd all changed, grown, learned to stand on our own and support each other in healthier ways. Okay, I agreed, but I'm staying until you're recovered from surgery. Deal, Willow said. Now let's talk about your marketing expertise. The business could use some fresh ideas. We spent the night planning, talking, and actually listening to each other. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress, and sometimes that's enough. Welcome to Gibson & Gibson Marketing. Willow greeted me at the door of Dad's renovated office building. What do you think? I stared at the modern glass entrance, the sleek new logo, and the bustling employees visible through the windows. I barely recognize it. Wait until you see inside. She led me through, proudly pointing out changes. We've doubled our client base since implementing your marketing strategies. Dad mostly works from home now, but he comes in for the big meetings, and Mom started her own catering business. Turns out all that stress baking had a silver lining. Willow laughed. She's actually really good at it. In the main conference room, Dad sat at the head of the table, looking healthier than I'd seen him in years. There's my Paris director. Not anymore, I corrected, hugging him. New York's home base now. Paris is just a quarterly visit. Speaking of New York, Willow pulled out a folder. I have a proposal for you. Oh, we want to open a New York branch. Dad and I talked about it, and she took a deep breath. We'd like you to run it. I blinked. What? As an equal partner, Dad added your sister's ideas and your marketing expertise. You'd be unstoppable. I already have a job. Miguel thought you might say that. Willow smiled knowingly. Miguel, who do you think approached us about a potential merger? Dad's eyes twinkled. Marshall and Brooks's New York office merging with Gibson and Gibson. You'd had the combined operation. I sat down hard. You've been talking to Miguel for months. Willow sat beside me. Look, I know our history is complicated, but we're not the same people anymore. I'm not asking you to save me or fix anything. I'm asking you to be my partner. Equal stakes, equal responsibility. What about Mom? Won't she expect Mom's too busy with her catering company to interfere? Dad chuckled, though she does insist on providing food for all our client meetings. My phone buzzed. Miguel, have they shown you the proposal yet? You knew about this? I texted back. Who do you think suggested it? You've outgrown being just an employee. Time to build something of your own. Willow watched me nervously. I know it's a lot to consider. Show me the numbers, I interrupted. Her face lit up as she pulled out spreadsheets and projections. We spent hours going through them, debating strategies and building on each other's ideas. This wasn't the old dynamic of me fixing her problems. This was true collaboration. One condition, I said. Finally, name it. We keep the offices separate. I run New York. You run Chicago. We coordinate, but maintain independence. Already planned for that. She pulled out another document. Draft partnership agreement. Completely equal, completely independent. When did you get so corporate? When I realized I was actually good at it. She smiled. Turns out I just needed to find my own path instead of being pushed onto someone else's. Dad stood up this cause for celebration. Your mother's been stress baking all morning, waiting for an answer. I haven't said yes yet. Please, Willow scoffed. I saw your face when you were going through those projections. You're in. She was right. The numbers were solid. The strategy sound and the opportunity, perfect. But more than that, the dynamic felt right. A healthy mom was waiting at their house with a spread that could feed an army. Well, we're going to need a New York office warming party, I said. She hugged me, whispering, I'm so proud of who you've become, who you've helped us all become. Moms. Getting sentimental. Willow stage whispered, Quick, someone give her something to bake. We all laughed. Naturally. Easily, without the underlying tension that had marked our family gatherings for so long. My phone buzzed again. Miguel, dinner tonight to celebrate as your former boss. And hopefully, something more. I smiled, typing back. Yes, to both. Looking around at my family. Dad healthy and semi-retired. Mom finding her own passion. Willow standing confidently on her own feet. I realized something profound. Sometimes running away isn't about escape. Sometimes it's about creating enough distance for everyone to grow into who they're meant to be. To Gibson and Gibson, Dad raised his glass, and to the daughters who made it possible. To finding our own paths, Willow added to healthy boundaries. Mom said softly. I raised my glass, looking at these familiar strangers who had become the family I always hoped we could be to new beginnings. And this time, I truly meant it. Story 3, Helen Collins is my name. In a little town that most people have probably never heard of, I work at the local library and I'm 29 years old. I have a straightforward life. Some may find it too easy, but it's mine. I've always been a quiet person who enjoys the companionship of books more than the cacophonous world outside. The library is my shelter. I think it's ideal, even if it's a little ancient structure with groaning flooring and shelves that have seen better days. I turn on the lights, open the library doors at 8 a.m. every day, and inhale the comforting smell of books. It is a regimen that is always the same. My grandma reared me after my parents died when I was a small child. She was a good-hearted woman who constantly pushed me to read and study, but she's also gone now, and I'm by myself. No close relatives, no siblings. Me and my little universe alone. Good morning, Helen. A frequent visitor, Mr. Jenkins, enters and says hello to me. He is an old man who reads history books all day long. Mr. Jenkins, good morning. The next supply of history books came yesterday. I've reserved them for you, I smile in response. My sweetheart, you know me too well. He laughs and shuffles over to the assigned shelf. This is how the day unfolds, with well-known faces appearing and disappearing. I direct Mr. Thompson to the science fiction area, suggest a romance book to Miss S. Harrison, and assist a group of children in selecting books for their school project. Although it's a tranquil existence, I enjoy it. The regularity and predictability give me comfort. Then everything changed one day. Jack entered my life one day while searching for a book. He wasn't your typical library type, though, as I could tell. His smart clothing and self-assured gait made him look out of place. Are you able to locate a book for me? Naturally, his voice was enticing and smooth as he requested. What are you trying to find? I replied, trying to keep my composure. It's a new book. I think of it as The Great Gatsby. I handed him the book and said, right this way, guiding him to the classics section. I felt a thrill when our hands momentarily touched. Even though it was just a touch, it stuck in my head. He read my name badge and responded, Thank you, Helen. My name is Jack. Jack, it's good to meet you. Everything started with that brief contact. The start of what I believed would be a lifelong love. The start of a voyage that will separate me from my familiar, tranquil existence into a world of treachery and mayhem. What I now know, I wish I had known then. Maybe things would have been different. However, there is no warning label for life. We sometimes have to learn things the hard way. Jack started going to the library more regularly after that initial encounter. Every time he came in, he would ask for a book recommendation and then spend a few minutes talking with me, which was strange because he didn't seem like the reading kind. He entered the room one day while I was fumbling with a box of recently delivered books. Do you need help with that? He volunteered, walking over. That would be fantastic. Regards. As we arranged the books on the shelf, I stated with relief. He inquired, What drew you to work in a library, Helen? I gave a shrug. I've always been an avid reader. You know, they're like friends. In addition, this place is peaceful, he chuckled. I noticed that. It feels like a whole different reality. With every visit, our talks became longer. I discovered out that Jack worked in his family's business, something having to do with real estate. He was simple to talk to, and I felt like someone actually cared about me for the first time in a long time. Then he shocked me one day. Helen, would you want to have supper with me tonight? His eyes were full of hope as he asked. I was surprised. Like going on a date? Like going on a date, yes, he grinned. I paused. There was something about him that made me want to say yes, even though this was new to me. I would enjoy that, all right, I answered, attempting to speak steadily. We visited a little eatery in the city. It was comfortable yet not ostentatious. We discussed everything and nothing at all. And for a few hours, I forgot about my typically alone life. I had a really great time tonight, Helen, Jack stated as he walked home. You're not like the individuals I often encounter. I simply smiled as I was at a loss for words. I'd like to see you again, he added. Is that acceptable? I gave a nod. I would enjoy it, yes. We began seeing each other more frequently after that. We would go for walks or he would take me out to supper. It was pleasant. For once, I had the impression that I belonged to something greater, a world beyond books and solitude. I quickly fell deeply in love with him. He made me feel unique and was nice and considerate. And when he proposed, I didn't hesitate. Yes, I replied. I regret not seeing the warning flags in the past. I regret not seeing that the attractiveness was really a front for something far less agreeable. However, love has a way of making you blind and unable to see the warning flags. I was also really in love. At least I believed I was. Following Jack's engagement to me, things began to shift. It started with his parents. They disapproved of me right away, Since I didn't come from a wealthy family, they believed I was beneath their son. They obviously didn't like me when I initially met them. We were at their place for supper, and I was worried. It was a huge, elegant house. Nothing like what I was used to. Helen, this is my mother, Margaret. And Richard, my dad. Jack gave the introduction. It's good to meet you, I said, attempting to grin. Margaret gave me a thorough examination. So you're the chick that works at the library? Yes, I am, I answered, getting smaller every second. Richard added his voice. Jack, couldn't you find someone more suitable? I had the need to crawl into a hole. The supper was long and unpleasant. They expressed their opinion that I wasn't suitable for their son. However, Jack defended me, which increased my affection for him. They insisted on a prenuptial agreement prior to our wedding. It was only a formality, they claimed. I consented without protesting since I had little to lose. After we were married, I moved in with Jack, who lived with his parents. They pretended that it was still theirs even though they had given it to him as a wedding present. His parents frequently dropped by without warning. They would enter and begin directing me. Helen, make us some coffee. As soon as Margaret entered, she would make demands, and I would comply silently. I didn't want to stir things up. One day, Margaret pointed to the TV and said, Remember, Helen, in case of divorce, you can't claim this. That was how everything was. They never stopped reminding me that I didn't own anything in the home. Jack also began to change. I didn't fall in love with him. His folks began making jokes about me, and he began to join in. I was having trouble deciding what to wear to a family gathering one evening. I asked Jack for his thoughts. He laughed and remarked, This one makes you look less drab. I was wounded. It seemed like he was a different person with his parents. He no longer advocated for me. Rather, he shared their laughter. The house was a tiring place to live. I felt like an unwelcome visitor and an outsider. I kept expecting things to improve, but instead, they grew worse. I was affected by the tension. I began to feel sick to my stomach, negative ones. Despite my best efforts to ignore them, I eventually passed out at the library. In the hospital, I awoke. According to the doctor, stress was the cause. I spent a few days in the hospital. Jack didn't visit. He never even gave a call. I was so isolated. Then a notary visited my room one day. He had some news. I hardly recalled my great aunt, but she was dead. She had also bequeathed her riches to me, $30 million. It seemed unbelievable to me. With money like that, I wasn't really sure what to do. All of a sudden, though, I was more than just the poor library girl. Jack and his parents were instantly beaming with joy and sweetness when they learned that they had come to see. We're so delighted for you, darling. Margaret spoke, her tone brimming with phony worry. We are a family, yes. We ought to help one another, Richard added. I didn't purchase it. The shift was too drastic. Upon their departure, they were conversing outside my room and I heard it. They were unaware that I was listening. What an idiot she is. Do you think we're lucky? Jack chuckled. Jack, we have to make sure she doesn't abandon you. Perhaps you ought to bear her a kid who will keep her bound, Margaret recommended. I was feeling nauseous. These folks didn't give a damn about me. All they wanted was my money. Then I realized what I needed to do. I had to leave that house and these people behind. I needed to be in charge of my life. I would no longer be their victim. I had a plan when I left the hospital. When I arrived home, I knew what I had to do. Jack was waiting with his folks. They were all grinning, pretending to be the loving family. They weren't. We were quite concerned about you, Helen, Margaret cried out. I gave a nod but remained silent. I had to be normal so as not to give them away. Jack approached. When will you receive your inheritance then? He was a bit too eager to inquire. I gave him a glance. I realized I didn't even recognize the man I thought I loved. I said it will be soon, but you shouldn't worry about it. His smile wavered slightly. But Helen, we're married. I mean, what's yours is mine. I made an effort to grin. Of sure, sweetheart. I had trouble sleeping that night. I could hear their voices in my mind, their avarice, their phony concern. I felt ill from it. I stood up and began to write. I documented all of their actions, all of their words. It like a dam breaking, and years of repressed anguish and annoyance burst forth. I met with a lawyer the next morning. I described everything, presented the prenuptial agreement to him. Despite his disbelief, He claimed that the arrangement would keep me safe. He told me, "You're doing the right thing." Jack and his dad were in the living room when I returned. When I stepped in, they glanced up. "Our courageous girl is there." With a smile that stopped short of his eyes, Richard remarked. I grabbed my handbag and sat down. "I want to share something." They all gave me interested looks. "I'm going to file for divorce." My voice was steady as I spoke. There was silence in the room. Margaret then burst out. "What? You're a little ungrateful." Jack stood up. "You can't be serious, Helen." "Jack, you know we adore you. Therefore, I don't experience love." I felt exploited. Margaret was furious. "We'll bring legal action against you. Half of your inheritance will go to us." I took out a copy of the prenuptial agreement from my handbag. "You can't, in fact. According to this, in the event of a divorce, none of us may claim the other's property." They couldn't speak. I felt like I was in charge for once. I got to my feet. "I'm going. None of you should get in touch with me." I left the residence. Behind me, there are yells and taunts. I had never done something so difficult. However, I felt as though a burden had been lifted as I drove away. I was free. Free from their manipulation. Free from their contempt. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. I had no idea what lay ahead, but I knew it had to be better than the past. In the city, I leased a modest flat. It was mine, but it wasn't fancy. In years, for the first time, there was a calmness about me. Even though I was still coping with the divorce, I thought I could manage. The attorney called me one day. "Helen, there's something you should know about your great-aunt's will I couldn't understand." "How about it?" "A condition exists. A percentage of your inheritance must be donated to a worthy charity." "It was the last thing your great-aunt wanted." I was taken aback. "I didn't know." The attorney went on. "She was a really generous person. She must have wanted to tell you that." I ended the call. My great-aunt had given me an opportunity to do something nice while she was deep in meditation. It seemed to be a sign, a push in a new direction. I began looking at issues and charities. I wanted to take part in something significant, something that would change things. At that point, I came into a tiny group that assisted women who had been abused at home. It resonated with me. I got in touch with them and arranged a meeting. Linda, the lady I met, was devoted and passionate. For women who have nowhere else to turn, we offer counseling, legal assistance, and refuge. Linda explained. Her stories touched me as I listened. I want to assist. I spoke with a purpose I hadn't had in a long time. I utilized a portion of the bequest to finance a new refuge under Linda's direction. Knowing that I was assisting other women in finding a path out, just as I had, was an amazing sensation. Linda asked me to attend the shelter's launch a few weeks later. It was a small event, but the atmosphere was full of hope and gratitude. I saw a familiar face in the crowd as people mixed. Sarah was the one, a longtime library coworker. "Helen? Is that you?" Startled, she asked. "It's been so long, Sarah." I hugged her as I said, "Why are you here?" she inquired. I informed her of my participation with the shelter. Her eyes widened as she listened. "That's amazing, Helen." "I didn't know. For me, it's a new chapter." Grinning, I said. We caught up during the evening. Reconnecting with an old acquaintance was pleasant. I had the impression that my life was gradually coming back together. As the event wrapped up, Linda arrived. "Helen, I can't thank you enough. Life will be changed by this refuge." The faces of the women who now had a safe place to go caught my attention. "The least I could do was this," I remarked, feeling a warmth in my heart that I hadn't felt in a very long time. The days were indistinguishable from one another, each packed with the gratifying job at the shelter. I was discovering something that was really mine, a new sense of purpose. Then my phone rang without warning. I hadn't seen that number in a long time. Jack's. Curiosity triumphed over the range of feelings racing through my heart. "Hi there, Jack." My voice was calm as I said, "I need to speak with you, Helen. Is it possible for us to meet? It's critical." He sounded desperate in his speech. I reluctantly accepted his invitation to meet in a public coffee shop in the hopes that being in a familiar setting would help me feel stronger. When he sat opposite Jack, he appeared different, defeated, almost pathetic. He had beseeching eyes. "I made a big mistake, Helen. I want you to return. I've come to understand how much I value you." He spoke without thinking. I felt nothing but disdain as I gazed at him. Jack, why now? He let out a sigh. My folks, everything was under their control. Our marriage didn't work out because of them. I was feeble, but now I'm different. Anger shot through me. You hold your parents responsible. You watched them treat me like garbage. Jack, you shared their laughter. He grabbed for my hand, but I jerked away. Helen, please. I realized my mistake. I've evolved. Whether he had changed or not, I still felt nothing as I gazed at the guy I had once loved. It's too late. Jack, I have no sympathy for you, only disdain. For a brief time, I had a glimpse of the guy I married as his face collapsed. However, it was short-lived. I apologize, Jack. I've moved on. Now, I have a life, a goal. It doesn't have room for you. I spoke aggressively. With a look of despondency on his face, he nodded slowly. I get it. I simply had to attempt to leave the coffee shop. A burden was lifted from my shoulders. It was done. It's really over. There was an event at the shelter the next day. A sculpture donated by a local artist was scheduled to be unveiled in the garden. I felt like I belonged there, surrounded by people who believed in me and supported me. Sarah. Beside me was my former library colleague. Helen, you've accomplished something truly remarkable. Grinning, she said. The sculpture's cover was removed by the artist, exposing a woman's figure grasping for the sky. It represented power, optimism, and fresh starts. Applause flooded the air, and for a minute, everything was right in the world. The woman who had been so helpful to me, Linda, came over. This is only the beginning, Helen. We have so much more to do. I knew she was correct when I saw the hopeful faces all around me. I was prepared to totally embrace this new beginning of mine. I had a busy and rewarding new life. At the shelter, there were fresh challenges and rewards every day. I became more self-assured and felt in charge of my future for the first time in years. I even began taking courses in self-defense, something I never would have thought to do previously. I once noticed a vehicle parked outside the shelter as I was leaving. It was Margaret, my mother-in-law, and she left as soon as she spotted me. We need to talk, Helen, she continued in a gentler voice than I had ever heard. Margaret, I said steadily, I have nothing to say to you. Just listen to me, please. I see now how foolish we were, she begged. I paused and gave her a glance. Although she looked sincere, I couldn't let go of the past. Margaret, what do you want? I'm sorry. I was terrible to you. As a result, I lost my son. Additionally, I don't want to lose you. I never had a daughter like you. With tears in her eyes, she spoke. Something gave me a stab of pain. Maybe sympathy, but I ignored it. You made my life a miserable nightmare, Margaret. That won't alter with an apology. I think you should move on, just as I have. I spoke aggressively. I retreated when she stretched out to me. Helen, please. I want to put things right, even though I know I can't change the past. I gave a headshake. For that, it is too late. Margaret, goodbye. I could feel her eyes on my back as I turned to go. However, I didn't turn around. There was no turning back now that I had learned to advocate for myself. Jack's attorney sent me a letter the following day. The divorce settlement was being contested by him. I was prepared, but I wasn't shocked. I met with my lawyer, a bright woman named Rachel. Helen, he has no leg to stand on. There is clarity in the prenuptial agreement. He's just trying to scare you, she asserted. I gave a nod. He no longer frightens me. Let's take this on. When the court date finally came, I entered with a confident demeanor. Jack and his attorney were present, and our gazes briefly locked. I saw a glimpse of the old Jack I had loved, but it was gone in an instant. After hearing both arguments, the judge rendered her judgment. Jack's claims were rejected, and the prenuptial agreement remained in effect. A wave of relief and victory washed over me. After the court hearing, Jack approached me. Helen, I'm sorry I was incorrect, he remarked, his voice low. I saw the man I had previously loved, but now had no feelings for when I looked at him. Jack, goodbye, I murmured to myself. Take care of yourself, and left the courtroom. I felt a feeling of closure. I had finally closed that chapter of my life, and a new one was just getting started. I was completely focused on organizing a benefit for the shelter. The community's support was tremendous, and I was quite appreciative. When the benefit night finally arrived, the venue was a hive of activity. People have gathered to support our cause from all walks of life. As I glanced around, I realized how far I had gone from a shy, timid lady to someone who spoke up for herself and others. "Helen, you did it! This is incredible!" Sarah remarked as she approached me. I grinned. We succeeded, and there's still a ton of work to be done. I experienced a feeling of purpose and success as the event progressed. I was right where I was supposed to be, and this was my life today.